As the third season of Toyota GR Cup North America begins to draw to a close, we turn our eyes towards Indianapolis. But before we do, our yearly trip to Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama, for what promises to be a wild set of races. Hello, everyone. My name is DJ Clark, joined alongside me by Kyle Heyer, as we get ready to go racing from this 2.3-mile, originally conceived as a motorcycle circuit race course that has turned into one of America's true motorsport delights.
Now, this facility is spectacular. It's a warm day here in the high 80s and the track temperature in the mid 90s here, DJ, but this is a fantastic facility for these GR86 Cup cars. It's a place that has 17 corners with camber and banking and elevations and climbs and falls, and it's so fun to run a 230 horsepower GR86 around here. And you mentioned that the championship is coming down to a close, but there's some new players that have entered the fray as of Road America a couple of weeks ago that are bringing some real battles to the front of the field for our contenders.
Yeah, we've got a lot of different positions that can flip-flop around based off of this race alone. And of course, we've got another one scheduled for tomorrow. One of the new players there, you can see the front of his car with a little bit of a cracked Toyota badge as proof of the signs of scrappiness in this series. That's Ethan Goulart, who really has come alive in the later parts of this year. The Tech Sport Racing driver really strutting his stuff as things have gone along. He's a young driver, but he's one that has got a lot of experience and a lot of talent.
Yeah, and Tech Sport Racing in general has a number of drivers that are up in the mix here as well, including the driver, the number 47, Parker DeLong, who was also one of the newer contenders there. But your championship leader, Weston Workman, was quickest in qualifying, starts on the front row. He has a fairly sizable points advantage, about 41 points coming into this event. So he doesn't have a lot of pressure in the championship, but in the races, you still want to pick up all those trophies.
Yeah, you talk to these drivers and they have that lethal mentality that you so often hear, that is, I know the championship's coming down to it, but I still want to win. We've also got to keep our eyes on Jeremy Fletcher here for Copeland Motorsports, another one of those latecomers into the series, out of championship contention, but certainly always in the conversation for a win.
Yeah, one of those drivers that has a lot of experience in one-make racing. Max Schweid, another Tech Sport Racing competitor, has never been here before, never raced here before, but used a ton of sim practice at the Chicane Club to get set up for this event here today. And that experience in the simulator is proving its stuff. P5 for the start of this race, and he'll start alongside Will Robusto in the RVA Graphics Motorsports by Speed Syndicate car. And watching him in qualifying and how he ran here last year, he's so aggressive. I love that aggression out of Robusto.
I do too. And another driver who is super aggressive, that is Lucas Weisenberg. Controlled aggression as always for the Lucas Racing driver in that number 46 Segra machine. And then the winner last time out, that was Spike Kohlbecker, finally breaking the duck on the season. This is his third season in competition, and it has been a victory every single season for that young man out of St. Louis.
Yeah, and just behind, you've got Jackson Tovo in the number 31, the Nitro Motorsports driver, just 15 years old. He's got brother Ethan a couple of rows behind, but he's ready to go racing up there inside the top 10 to start. And again, he's lined up alongside Jackson Bell, who's the runner-up in the championship at the moment. It hasn't been the weekend Jackson Bell has been hoping for in that Centercom number 7, but there's only upward to go from here, I think. We know his pace is good enough for a podium.
Yeah, and we've seen him start a little farther back in the order and be able to work his way through as well, so he's going to be one to watch out for. Another Robusto, this time Isabella Robusto, starting off in that 11th place position with her brother in the RVA Graphics Motorsport by Speed Syndicate machine, and then Ethan Tovo be rolling off in 12th. The Tovo brothers both in the field. We're going to have to be careful because we can't just say Robusto and Tovo. We've got to specify this time around.
I love it, keeping the families in racing, and there's a ton of families watching on the hillsides here as well. Good look inside the number 21 of Ford Koch, one of the Copeland Motorsports cars. He's got a teammate to his outside as well, a young 15-year-old Jensen Safronis in the number 41 machine, another driver we've seen have some great gains in pace and consistency over the year. But it is a field that has a lot of the championship front runners still up towards the pointy end, but at the very tail of the field there, Rutledge Wood in that blue car as well, a familiar face from Toyota Racing, and you might have seen him on American Top Gear as well. And this is his now third weekend of 4 scheduled for 2025.
Yeah, he'll be with us as well as Indianapolis, previously joining us at both Circuit of the Americas and Road America. So happy to have Rutledge back with us, kind of carrying on a good tradition of celebrities making their way into the racing sphere with Toyota GR Cup North America. Now, Kyle, let's take a minute to talk about this track. Said already, 2.3 miles, a lot of elevation change, but very difficult to get going.
Yeah, and as engines fire here, DJ, to your point about the racetrack, it's difficult, but here's why. We came from a racetrack in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin about 3 weeks ago that has a lot of straightaways where you can draft and you can use the slipstream and you're braking in a straight line. And there was elevation, but it all happened on the straights. Here at Barber Motorsports Park, you go up and down everywhere. They have a corner called the Alabama roller coaster. The whole place is a roller coaster. You're up and down the entire time. You need to make sure that you set the car up for those compressions and the rises and the crests. But these cars roll off on their Continental slicks, getting ready to take on the challenge for 45 minutes.
It's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be a technical battle. It'll be a battle of wits, I think, out on the circuit. Maybe a little bit of mind games being played behind the wheel and underneath the helmet for a lot of these drivers. But one thing is we can tell you rest assured, and that is it is going to be a good fight out on this track, because when you let loose these 20-odd Toyota GR Cup cars, it's always a very good time. Well, let's go ahead and run you through the starting grid for today's race. As we said, Weston Workman starting in pole position, holding on to his championship lead. Ethan Goulart to his outside for Tech Sport Racing. Behind him, it is Parker DeLong, another one of those Tech Sport drivers, and a newcomer relative into the series alongside Jeremy Fletcher for Copeland Motorsports. Row 3 will be Max Schweid, another one of the Tech Sport cars, and then the first of the RVA Graphics Motorsport by Speed Syndicate entries with Will Robusto. It is the solo car entry for Lucas Racing in the form of Lucas Weisenberg with Spike Kolbecker to his outside, winner last time out in Road America. And then Jackson Tovo and Jackson Bell will line up in row 5, completing your top 10.
In row number 6, starting 11th, it's Isabella Robusto for RVA Graphics Motorsports. Ethan Tovo starts 12th alongside her in the Nitro Motorsports 113. In 13th place, Ford Koch for Copeland Motorsports starts alongside his Copeland teammate Jensen Safronis in the number 41, with Max Stallone for PT Autosport making his first start at Barber Motorsports Park. Another driver from PT Autosport spending some time on the sim. Beltre Curtis starts 16th. Carl Foreman rolls off 17th place in the Precision LA number 03. Massimo Sinceri in the green and white number 51 rolls off 18th. Then it's Patrick Brunson for Eagles Canyon Racing. Peyton Fayen for Nitro Motorsports is number 80, rolling off 20th. In the final row, Liam Harrison for Copeland Motorsports and Rutledge Wood, the aforementioned driver in the number 18 for Precision Racing LA.
Nice big field here, plenty of room to be able to maneuver, but this track narrows down at points and makes things very difficult, thinking particularly of that area going down into turn 7, that famed museum corner complex. And then again here, it may be wide, but there's really only one line you can realistically take through turns 1 and 2 and into the Alabama roller coaster.
Yeah, the track is wide, it drives narrow. And what I mean by that is there's a racing groove that is very sensitive. There's a lot of camber in this racetrack. The rubbered in line is the place you want to be. You see the dark area just outside of turn 1 there? That will pick up some marbles throughout the race. If you get offline, it will send you for a slide into the runoff area. This track was built in 2004. It has paved runoff in places, 2003, excuse me, DJ. But it's got paved runoff in a few places, but there's grass between it and the runoff and the racetrack. So what that means is if you go off, you get penalized, not necessarily from race control, but in pace and speed.
Exactly. It's a little bit old school in the way that it drives. Obviously new school in the fact that it was constructed in 2003, ground broken in 2002. It was finished in 2003, we should say. But definitely a place that is a driver's track. Overtaking going to be a little bit more on the difficult side. Doesn't mean we're not going to see it, but you really have to be deliberate with your moves.
Yeah, the run into turn 5 and here at turn 8, you can sort of force the issue down here if you get side by side. But we saw this race last year be a little rough and tumble. If you get door to door, you have to get your elbows out. This chicane on the back straightaway, turns 9 and 10. Very single groove here. You're flat out in these cars through this section, leaning on a little bit of downforce that you get, but jumping these curbs in a big way. And again, while it's tricky to pass, it's very easy to follow in close proximity. So the racing's going to look really close, but you have to get very brave to make a pass.
That you do, already starting to form up into a little bit of that too wide formation. Ethan Goulart deciding to jump back into line there, but Workman and Goulart going to take their way down through this final carousel on the circuit. Look for maybe a little bit of a false overtaking opportunity down into these final 2 corners. We can see it maybe a little bit in these momentum-based cars, but I doubt you're going to see a whole lot of it. But The pace car is pulled off into pit lane, giving control of the field over to Weston Workman. Already a little bit of jockeying for position up in front. Saw a little bit of contact there with Fletcher into the back of Goulart, but all eyes now turn towards the flag stand to Tom Hansen. Green flag is in the air. We are racing. One car in the back poking out of line before they cross the start line. That's not going to be okay. They got back into line. Everybody looks
trouble, contact.
No, there we go, bumping and banging, and there are pieces flying down into one.
Yeah, that was Jackson Tovo and Lucas Weisenberg coming together there, hip and shoulder. They kept going the right direction, but is there bodywork damage and more slides, and Max Stallone goes for a wild ride. Bodywork spilling out into the exit of turn 2.
That was Max Stallone. Beltray Curtis also involved in that. I believe he was the car that got pinched a little bit. Goulart thinking about a move to the inside of Workman. Fletcher holds on to P3. Robusto and DeLong side by side down through Charlotte's Web.
Remember, I told you you'd be elbows out. They're already jamming into their rib cages here up towards turn 8, Museum Corner, down this straightaway. There's not a lot of draft to lean on here like there was at Road America, so if you want to make an overtake, it'll have to be in the very short braking zones. See the 2 of Will Robusto leading the 47 down that fall there.
I think there may have been a little bit of nudging going down into turn 7, but they sort themselves out by the time they make their way out of the right-hander and under the bridge. Here comes Workman, still leading the pack as they climb those curbs. That's that area that you talked about, Kyle, that you pretty much have to be single file through or you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of damage on the left front. I think that was Massimo Sinceri in the number 51 that had some damage sustained in that incident. I think there's a couple others that have some Continental lettering maybe rubbed off in the early stages of this one. As we work our way through the final few corners, the full course yellow has been deployed.
And not altogether unsurprised by that. A lot of debris that we noticed down into turn 2. That incident really taking out a couple of cars, and safety, of course, of the most paramount on the minds of the drivers and the race control here this weekend.
Yeah, again, everyone knows that this place is challenging to overtake, so you have to be aggressive on the starts. And we saw a couple of drivers get 2 and 3 wide. We saw Max Stallone pop out at the start. You called it, DJ, but critically, he did get back in line, so they will probably forgive him for that. Let's have a look at the restart, or the initial start there. There's Tovo and Weisenberg tangling, and then look up as they come back on the course. Watch Stallone there in the PT Autosport car, and the 5 of Beltray Curtis gets squeezed there with Massimo Sinceri, and that's where that contact happened.
Yeah, and Fort Koch to the outside there as well. That was just kind of one of those ping pong effects. 4 wide through that corner doesn't really work, and you saw with Curtis down to the inside, kind of bump to the out, bump to the out, bump to the out, bump to the out.
Yeah, and there's one of those plastic fender liners that's dispatched itself on the run up to turn 5, and well, they're relatively lightweight, and they don't really affect performance all that much. You don't want to have a ton of debris on course. So they'll spend some time behind the GR86 safety car, which, you know, this is probably an example of the closest that a safety car is to its race car counterpart. There's not really all that much different. At least in the motor, they could have a drag race and they would both tie, because the GR86 safety car has the exact same factory sealed engine that the cars in the race have. Of course, the GR86 Cup car has all these safety additions, including the roll cage, OMP safety gear, JRI shocks, Alcon brakes. You know, we've got the SATEV 6-speed sequential. But as far as the engine, showroom stock for both the pace car and the cars following.
Well, and as you like to say, these cars do begin life as true GR86 cars. Yep. They have a VIN and everything. They are just shipped over to Charlotte, and then all of what you just mentioned put onto the car to turn them into these GR Cup machines that we see racing today at Barber.
Yeah, the GR Garage is where they put all these cars together before they make their way to customers around the country. And there's been a whole bunch of them, and they've got great support program here on site for parts and pieces. We've had a number of these cars take a spill early in the weekend, and almost all of them have been repaired in time to go racing the next day by virtue of having those parts on site and the crews that do such a nice job keeping everything in place. So 1 lap behind the safety car so far. One of the cars that we pointed out in the pre-race there, the number 55 of Spike Kohlbecker. You documented how he got his first win of the season at Road America. It was race 1 there. Had a second place in race 2 and actually vaulted himself over Ethan Goulart in the title fight. Position number 4 now, and Lucas Weisenberg is in sight as well. So Spike Kohlbecker still has a chance to get up onto the podium for the season. He just needs to outperform that 46 car, and right now he is.
Yeah, he is doing it. partially as a result of that contact that Weisenberg suffered on that first lap, but Lucas may be able to try to scrap back a little bit. There's Lucas on your screen. He's got some drivers ahead of him, Isabella Robusto, Jackson Tovo, and Jackson Bell, that he'll try to get his way up. Crucially here, we do use what we sort of call the standard FIA points system. So points are scored 25 for first place on down to 1 point for 10th. So as things stand right now, Weisenberg out of the points.
Yeah, and there's only one driver this year that has earned points in every single race, and that's your championship leader. So, yeah, winning races is fantastic. Weisenberg has done that a number of times this year, but consistency is even better. And, you know, you've got drivers like DeLong in that number 47 who are new as of Road America. They don't care about the championship points. They're not here to, you know, score in the points column. They're just here to take the trophies away from the championship front runners. And for guys like Weston Workman and Ethan Goulart, that's a distraction to their efforts, and they just need to stay focused on getting consistent results before they head to Indianapolis next month.
Race control busy early on here as we are getting an indication that the incident involving the 31 of Jackson Tovo and the 46 of Lucas Weisenberg is under review. That's that bumping and banging that we saw going into turn 1, as well as the incident in turn 3. But Kyle, I believe, lights are out on that GR86 safety car. Weston Workman, for the second time in about 3 laps or so, is going to be bringing this field back around to green flag conditions, slowing him down a little bit as he is wont to do. Earlier acceleration zone. Workman gets on the loud pedal. We are back to green flag racing.
And single file restarts here at Barber Motorsports Park, which should simplify the first sector this time through. We probably won't see 4 wide this time, and that's good news for all the drivers that are midfield trying to focus up the road. A little bit of dirt flying. We're going to see that a lot today. And Spike Kohlbecker trying to nose in. Jackson Tovo runs out wide. Isabella Robusto trying to get the nose of the 111 up underneath.
Spike Kohlbecker already making some moves here early on. That's going to be Max Schweid. He was just able to get around Parker DeLong and Will Robusto up in front of him. They're going to dive in. Robusto thinking about going to the inside there of Jeremy Fletcher. Kohlbecker thinking about going to the back of Parker DeLong. He keeps themselves in single file down through Charlotte's Web. That's the 31 of Jackson Tovo.
And I believe that the 46 of Lucas Weisenberg was on the attack there, so there might have been a little bit of a touch before we heard the tires squealing across the surface. That will knock him down the order just a little ways as Weisenberg begins his recovery efforts there. There's now Ford Koch in the 21. He's closing in on Robusto right behind that group. Now, see all the counter steer there at the bottom of the hill. The car caught compression and kicked out the rear sideways.
Yeah, it certainly did. Good catch there by those drivers. Workman starting to put on a clinic up in front of the field here at this point. They're trying to close on in the best they can. And this is one of those situations, Kyle, that we've seen so many times over the course of a race weekend. You can't fight when you've got a driver this quick up front. You've got to work together a little bit.
They've really got to push here, and you know, I call that co-opetition, to use a word from Darrell Waltrip. You got to work together, but you're fighting against other drivers. Everyone's in their own points battle, but that doesn't mean that you don't want to cooperate a little bit. You can't let the leader just have clear racetrack to themselves. They will just set the pace and drive away. It is a driver's track, like you mentioned, which means you can get into a flow and just let everyone else fight for scraps.
Yeah, it really is a rhythm track, and once you unlock that rhythm a little bit, you will find yourself starting to be able to put some good lap times together. But until that happens, it can be very difficult, and it's also very easy to lose that rhythm over the course of a drive. 2 pairs of couplets there, Will Robusto and Parker DeLong, as well as Spike Kohlbecker and Max Schweid. That's the battles for 4th and 6th, respectively. Not seeing anybody poke out a line going down into turn number 5. Everybody keep it pretty neat and orderly, although Schweid may be taking a little bit of a look at a crossover here on Kohlbecker.
Yeah, cutting some distance on corner exit, and that will help him get alongside as Workman leads the way. See Ethan Gerlant, a little flash on the headlights there just to remind Workman that he does have drivers behind him that are trying to run him back down. But fastest lap of the race so far does belong to that BSI Racing driver, to 1:37.864. We might see that fall even further because we haven't had a lot of green flag laps at full pace just yet.
Well, and as testament to that gap that you see up at the front of the field, that's about 0.6 of a second faster than anybody else in line, so a good run for him. We watch the battle right now for P6 as Kohlbecker tries to hold off Max Schweid. Remember, Kohlbecker was able to get this move done on the restart, and now Schweid trying to get it back.
And Kohlbecker was on defense down into Museum Corner at turn 8. He's going to do the same thing here, run a shallower line through turns 14 and 15, because it's very easy to kind of tuck your nose up underneath and try to shorten that distance. It just puts you on the wrong side of the road for the last turn, though. there's so much back and forth here that if you're in an advantageous position one turn, you're probably not going to be in the same position in the next, which is why it's so tricky to make an overtake unless you can do it quickly and efficiently.
Dirt kicked up in front there by Jeremy Fletcher. The battle for fourth starting to play out between Parker DeLong and Will Robusto. Robusto leads in that orange and blue machine, but DeLong right on the rear, and that's Peyton Fan having an off going down into turn one.
Yeah, and she's stuck. She won't be able to move there while other cars come at her at turn one. And finally, Rutledge Wood goes by, and Fan can get turned back around. And doesn't look like there's a lot of damage on that car. Turn one's a big commitment corner. We'll have a look at a replay here to see exactly how she found herself in this position. But did she have help? No, just got in there a little hot, DJ.
Yeah, got in there a little hot. You saw the cross up because of oversteer, just trying to hold on to it.
She almost had it.
Just dragged into the kitty litter there, and that was enough to spin her around.
Yeah, did a nice job there, keeping it from getting worse. You know, one of the things that I think, you know, young drivers have learned very nicely in this series is if you're going to spin out, there is something to be said about just let the car spin instead of trying to save it and correcting yourself back potentially towards the barrier. So job well done there.
I mean, how many times have we seen a driver overcorrect and the car grip up and spear off into a barrier or something of that nature?
Especially at a place like turn one where you get to the bottom of that hill and the car compresses and you gain a bunch of grip. So you've got counter steer in it, you hit that compression, the car shoots back the other way. It is a skill to spin out. I know it sounds silly, but that is the case.
Battle for P2 percolating here at the moment. That's going to be Ethan Goulart and Jeremy Fletcher kicking up some dirt on the exit of the final corner. Fletcher trying to move his way ahead a little bit more just to see if he can close on in. Ford Koch there in the back. I think that's a little bit more of a defensive move as Ethan Tovo is going to take a look to his outside. But Tovo has to give up the ghost, tries for maybe a little bit of a crossover as Koch runs just barely wide. But to keep it together, Isabella Robusto up ahead of them in that blue machine for RVA Graphics Motorsports.
Yeah, easy car to spot. It's very bright blue in the Alabama sunshine. And Ford Koch, again, on defense from Ethan Tovo. And Ethan tried to set him up for a pass into turn two, but Ford kept it together. And into five again, this tricky corner, because you can defend this fairly easily. The track widens out on exit, so you get a little bit of extra room to track out if you shallow up. But Ethan Tovo, that's the yellow Dayglow car with the white on top to the left of the black and purple Ford Koch Copeland Motorsports machine.
Checking back up towards the front of the field. This is the battle for P4. Will Robusto and Parker DeLong. Everybody kind of breaking out into couplets over the course of this, as that's the battle for Robusto and DeLong. Up ahead of them, Goulart Fletcher. Behind them, Kohlbecker and Schweid.
Yeah, and again, this racetrack, it's going to benefit you if you're patient. Will Robusto charging over the turn 11 curbs. We saw this last year, and he was very willing to, you know, put on a show and get aggressive with the entry curb there, to the point where last year I recall asking if race control is even going to look at that, because he was all four tires to the inside of the curb. But he is just using every inch of the racetrack to his advantage, but looks a little on the back foot right now, I have to say.
He looks like he's overdriving the car ever so slightly, and that's allowing for a little bit of a run here, I think, for Parker DeLong. Robusto is up two, but DeLong certainly hunting right now. A little bit of a wide run there from Kohlbecker in the back.
Yeah,
DeLong's going to poke his nose to the inside. No.
Yeah, you leave 75% of a car width. I bet you someone goes hunting to put their GR86 to the inside here. I mean, you just don't have that many opportunities. So if a driver slips up and leaves you a couple feet, you might as well get your nose in there. But race control doesn't love when you use contact to do it, so you try to do it without that. Here's two drivers that we talked about at the top of the show. Jackson Bell, Lucas Weisenberg. Has not been a model weekend for them, and it's about to get worse for the 46 car, DJ.
Yeah, that is going to be a drive-through penalty for incident responsibility. I believe, based off of what I've seen, that is for that contact that we saw coming down into turn 5.
And that's brutal for Lucas because, again, comes into the weekend third in the championship standings. And Spike Kohlbecker, coming off a very successful round at Road America, would likely surpass him with how things are looking at the moment. Maybe not quite, but it's going to definitely put the favor towards the 55 car if Lucas has another day like this tomorrow.
Well, we do go qualifying tomorrow morning, so it will be a full reset for the likes of Weisenberg, which can be a good thing. And so we'll have to see how that shakes, but he will have to serve a drive-through penalty. Meanwhile, what was a pair of couplets has now formed into a quartet, as this is Robusto leading DeLong, leading Kohlbecker, leading Schweid. This the battle all for P4.
Yeah. 4-horse race for fourth place as they come up onto the front straightaway, kicking dust and debris up everywhere. At the back of that shot, Max Schweid popping out in the 98. His only experience here before in the iRacing simulator. Of course, we ran last week the Toyota GR Cup North America Esports Championship.
That's
Will
contact.
Robusto sideways. Here comes the 47 and more contact.
That, I don't know if race control is going to look great on that, as I think that was a little bit of pushing out of the way, but we'll see. It's now going to be a drag race coming up the hill. 46 is serving the drive-through right now.
Oh, more. Was that more contact there between those two? But the two cars just pushing on the brakes to try to run away from this as Kohlbecker takes advantage to the inside of the 47. Here comes Schweid. Pick the pocket of both. Why not?
And this is exactly what we talked about when we talked about how you have to drive and overtake on this track. You just look for opportunities. You just look for moments where you're able to do it. And that is exactly what happened, although DeLong going to be able to get that run back on Schweid. So Schweid will stay down in 7th, DeLong in 6th.
Yeah, they need to kind of recollect this here. It got pretty hands-on there for a moment, but this is how this racetrack tends to go with these cars. You just get the aggression level amped up here as drivers try to find any advantage they can. Hear the rumble strips buzzing over there as they use all the width of the racetrack. And heading down to this big compression at the bottom of 11 and 12. Robusto again, just putting on a model of shortening distance.
Yeah, doing a really, really good job. Now, here's my question is we know Robusto can get a little bit squirrely going through these corners, and now Kohlbecker's the one in the catbird seat. Is he going to be able to pounce on it a little bit more? Good line there from Robusto, carries good speed and gets another, I'd say about another car length of an advantage coming down the front straightaway. DeLong looking a little bit of an alternate line. That won't play, but very good momentum held through turn 1 for Parker DeLong.
I think Spike Kohlbecker's got to maybe look at the big picture here, because the opportunity might pose itself that he could get by the 2 car, but if he ends up having contact or collects a penalty, it would certainly hurt him, because he's got an advantage over Lucas Weisenberg today and could gain a bunch of points towards the 3rd in the championship. I'm not sure it's worth it to draw a penalty, but he'll go down the inside anyway, and this is probably the best chance he's going to get. He'll take it, and they're side by side out of turn 6.
Spike Kohlbecker clearly not listening to you. Cars 2 and 47. That's going to be DeLong and Robusto have been given a warning for driving standards. That's that contact that we saw on that last lap.
Didn't say the 55 shouldn't pass him, just that he shouldn't knock him out of the way, and he did exactly what he needed to do there. Nicely done. As you mentioned, the 2 and 47. This little slap on the wrist there, they'll have to do it a little differently than the last time.
Well, when they're nose to tail once again, now that Kohlbecker's made that pass up into 4th, Robusto and DeLong 5th and 6th. Let's see what they're able to do. Because it does look like Robusto gets a better run through the back half chicanes. He is able to hold on close to the back of Spike Kohlbecker. Again, as you pointed out, Kyle, just aggressive on those curbs, really taking every inch that he can.
He's taking advantage of the fact that these cars are set up relatively soft with the JRI adjustable shocks. You can tweak rebound and compression and things just as you would any other aftermarket shock, but these cars are really robust and they can take a beating. And if you can hammer that curb and gain some time, do it. I mean, that's what these cars are designed to do. That's why they have this suspension, is just to make it ready for the abuse of the racetrack. So Robusto taking advantage of that here. But it is putting a lot of energy into the tires as well.
Yes, it is. But these Continental tires can take a beat and they'll keep on going, as we well know. Down through the Alabama roller coaster, compression at the bottom of the hill, up to the rise and the crest over turn 4. Car gets very, very light there if you try to put some input in there. We've got a battle a little bit farther up. That was Fletcher and Goulart starting to get into it.
Yeah, that one I think is far from over between those two, and they've separated themselves as well. So they'll have plenty of time to sort this one out without having pressure from behind. Again, Jeremy Fletcher has a lot of experience in single make championships, a couple different ones, in fact. He's just adding this one to the repertoire, but showed up at Road America and it was immediately in contention back there when we went to Road America. Didn't really get the finishes that I think he deserved based on his pace alone, but right now in 3rd, looking for 2nd on Goulart, who's been a seasoned contender in that 72.
Yeah, it really has, and only ran a partial schedule this year. I don't think he was with us at Sonoma, was he?
Goulart? Yeah.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Oh, that's my mistake.
Partial schedule last year.
It was partial schedule last year. That's what I'm thinking of. But, yeah, really since coming onto the scene at VIR last year, has really come alive. A little bit of a scruffy run there through those final couple of corners leading into the carousel allows for Fletcher to gain back up on him. But Goulart really has a good head on his shoulders. Really, really heads-up kid. And runs a little bit wide there on the exit of the final corner, kicking up some dirt. But let's also talk about our championship leader and our leader in the race, who does hold on to the fastest lap of the race with a 1:37.428. Weston Workman, just flawless today.
Just clinical. And if you look at the circuit performance on the Race Vision powered by AWS, note that he is the fastest in every sector on the racetrack. So just putting on a show and leaving it, no opportunity for Goulart or Fletcher to run him down. And what a season it's been, not only for him, but for BSI Racing, picking up their first win in Toyota GR Cup North America. And it is so competitive. The top 4 right now, representatives from 4 different race teams: BSI Racing, Tech Sport, then Copeland Motorsport, then RVA Graphics Motorsport by Speed Syndicate. And this is not necessarily what we saw last year, where there was dominance from really 1 or 2 major teams. It's much more even this year, and for BSI Racing to be on top of that has to be a huge success for their team and for Weston Workman.
Well, especially considering what you just said, which is the fact that they hadn't picked up a victory before this year. And finally being able to break that duck at Sebring with Weston Workman, just an incredible run. Kolbecker starting to stretch his legs a little bit from 4th place as there Max Schwei tries to close in on the back of Parker DeLong. Down through the chicanes on the back half of the circuit right now. Big hop, skip, and a jump for all 3 of these drivers, Robusto, DeLong, and Schwei.
If I'm a photographer, I'm going down there to see how far off the ground the 2 cars getting every lap cleared for takeoff at turn 11.
He's certainly putting those JRI shocks through their paces here this weekend. Long in 6th, just looking for a break in that armor, just looking for an opportunity.
I mean, his name is Robusto, and that car is really holding up to the task here late in this season. He's really trusting in the equipment and shows how strong these cars are in race form. Again, we mentioned how the engines are showroom stock in 45 minutes at a time. The oil cooler might be upgraded slightly, but again, 45 minutes at a time at 7,000 RPM over and over and over again. Again, engine management from Bosch as well. That also gives them some pretty fancy traction control and ABS to boot. It helps a lot in the rain. It helps a lot in the stopping distance, but these cars are just thrashed all weekend long in this series, and they hold up so well.
Yeah, you don't drive these things lightly. You throw them around, and that's really constituted by the fact that you can just hear, if you are around the track, the squealing of the tires, the creak of the car as they push their way through. It's a really impressive thing to be able to see. I think back to when I was in Road America a couple of years ago watching these cars come through Canada Corner. I was amazed at how sideways they were.
Yeah, I love that they give them some ride height too, so they don't have to worry about straddling up on the curbing. They can really attack the racetrack and extract the performance of the vehicle. And man, look at all 4 tires on the curbing there. I believe the original car, the first generation of these machines, the center of gravity was something like 10 inches off the ground, incredibly low by virtue of that 4-cylinder boxer-style engine under the hood, which is a very wide but low package for engines versus an inline 4, which would be much more upright and take the center of gravity much higher up in the car. That's why these things are so good at pointing the nose around a track like Barber.
Jeremy Fletcher for Copeland Motorsports starting to get a little bit hungry here on the back of Ethan Goulart, the Tech Sport Racing driver number 72, holding his own for now, but Fletcher looking very, very hungry. Lost a little bit of ground through turns 3 and 4. Goulart just bringing that car back over to the standard racing line, taking a wider arc through the corner, and there we can see some Race Vision powered by AWS, those lap time breakdowns.
And says that he'll catch him in 2 laps. I think he's caught him now. He might catch him in 2 feet as they head down the straightaway towards turn 7. But again, where do you go? What do you do? If you hold drivers right there and defend from the downhill run into turn 8, I'm not sure that that Fletcher can get the job done here. It might take him 2 laps to figure out how to pass him, and then at that point we might really see a real attempt. But until now, just waiting for a mistake from Goulart, who's been very solid so far.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems that you sometimes run into with a series such as this. It's waiting for that mistake that never comes, because that is how experienced these young drivers are. And I stress that they are young. I mean, we're talking about teenagers for the most part of this group, and the maturity that they show behind the wheel is nothing short of staggering.
And watch as we enter the final couple of corners here. Fletcher opens the door to the inside, cuts the distance. That was beautifully done there. The 22 Copeland Motorsports car sneaks by Ethan Goulart for second place. Goulart tries to respond in the final corner. Battle for second still on now. Advantage 22.
Advantage 22, but this isn't done. He's going to fade down to the inside is Fletcher. Goulart's going to look to the outside. You're going to try and roll more speed down through turn one, but Fletcher outbreaks him, is able to keep the power down and get it perfectly. That was textbook from Jeremy Fletcher.
And he braked like a whole marker later. I think Goulart was hoping to brake early and over-under there, but again, the next major corner is a 180-degree right-hander, so I don't think that was going to play out in his favor, but a nice run out of turn 4, and he's going to look drivers right now into the Charlotte's Web area on the racetrack, this downhill run into 5.
And I think looking for a crossover yet again is Goulart, just not able to roll that speed through the corner, and Fletcher's going to be able to stay ahead. Again, very, very heads up, very, very quick work there for Jeremy Fletcher. Saw the opportunity and went for it down into the back half of the circuit.
Yeah. Downhill run here into Museum Corner. Fletcher a little bit later and deeper on the brakes and managed to make that pass. It is now putting some distance on Goulart as they head up towards turns 9 and 10. Spike Kolbecker has dispatched the rest of that fight for 4th place. And looking a little bit deeper in the field, Jackson Tovo, who was involved in that incident early on, just gives a spot up to the 21 of Ford Koch. This car has seen a little bit of melee on both the left and the right. The right front fender's all tore up, and the left side number board's got some marks on it.
Yeah, it looks like on the side skirt there on the right, there's a little bit of flapping as well. I think that's just a little bit of the wrap that's coming off. But nevertheless, it's not really going to affect.
Just a flesh wound.
Yeah, exactly. Just a flesh wound there for Ford Koch, but he'll keep going. Good move from him, checking back up to Fletcher up at the front of the field in P2. There's that battle on backwards. Let's take a look at this battle right now. This is Jackson Bell and Jensen Sofronis.
Wow. Jensen, a really strong run for the 41. He started right up in this mix, right alongside, or right just behind Jackson Bell, but here he is putting pressure now on the runner-up in the championship as it stands. And for 15-year-old Jensen Sofronis, what a job well done this is. It's been a learning experience this year. There's been some times where he's walked away from a weekend with some body work to fix and some lessons learned, but that's the development process for a young driver, and he's done a very nice job, again, with support from Copeland Motorsports and his dad that have all the experience to give him a program that he can lean on and gather trust in, and over time, we've really seen his finishes improve over the course of the year.
Yeah, we really have, and this is kind of a special battle. 2 second-generation racers working their way up through the ranks as things stand, and we always love to see this. We love to see motorsport staying in families and continuing on. It's always very, very special.
So if Jensen could hang on to a top 10 spot, it would only be the second time this season he's scored points as well. Scored points at Circuit of the Americas. Had a couple of top 10s there as his best results for the year. So looking to potentially tie that, maybe improve on it if he can find a way around the number 7, who just drives through a dust cloud at the exit of turn 13.
And that can be so scary, particularly at that corner, because it is a blind crest as you come over, and you don't know what's waiting on the other side of that dust cloud.
There was some drama there last year in one of the GT races at Barber in our first round back in the to Barber Motorsports Park since the SRO naming. Again, for Jackson Bell, I mean, not ringing alarm bells, running inside the top 10, good solid day, but this driver, I think, was one of the favorites, probably the favorite to win the championship very early on.
He was my pick.
Yeah, and then Weston Workman just hit his stride in the middle of the summer at VIR and at Road America, and it really Sebring, the double win at Sebring was the real breakthrough through the 13, and then the 7 has just been slipping just a little bit. Go back up to the 2 and the 47. This is the battle for 5th.
Yeah, Parker, the long flash in the headlights, trying to get into the mind there a little bit of Will Robusto, not necessarily getting that move done. He's got to be careful because Max Schweid is right there ready to pounce if there is any sort of mistake that DeLong gives up in his quest to be able to get by that number 2 in front of him.
And this race has gone by fairly quickly, 17 minutes to go. Let's just say it feels like it's gone by very quickly. It's taken exactly the same amount of time to get to 16 minutes to go as it always does, I should clarify. But again, for drivers that have been really aggressive like Will Robusto, I'm actually very impressed that his longevity is there as well. Still making lap time despite how ragged at times he's looked. He's finding speed with that. I think this racetrack with some camber will allow you to be aggressive. It gives you a bit of a safety net with the banking to lean on in some of these faster corners.
Yeah, it does. You're able to use that camber to your advantage a little bit more. You're able to keep things together. And Robusto just, it seems like he knows the limits of this track. He's not pushing overly on them. He's not getting out and over the edge, but he's definitely right up to it. And that's exactly where you want to be as a driver. Checking back in on that battle, again, for 8th place, Bell and Sofronis. It's expanded out the gap a little bit more. Call it about a half a second as they crossed over the start-finish line. I want to keep my eye here on Bell. He just caught a little bit of that inside curb and just ran it a little bit wide on the exit of 3. That's what he's really been doing. He doesn't look fully comfortable through those 2 corners.
Yeah, Alabama roller coaster, a lot of compression, a lot of G-load in these cars. Remember that low center of gravity and, it's the banking and a lightweight car with grippy, sticky Continental tires. You're going to be carrying a lot of speed through there. And if you get back on throttle early and commit to it, the G-force is pulling you to the left in the seat. You have to trust when you start unwinding the wheel that you're not unwinding too early. End up off course. Seen a lot of drivers drop wheels and tires there.
Aggressive line there for Sofronis. Let's check back a little farther in the field. This is Ethan Tovo, the battle for 10th right now. Tovo in that white and day-glow yellow machine, followed by Isabella Robusto, Ford Koch, and Jackson Tovo. Again, this is the battle for P10 right now.
Heading into that chicane high speed. Again, full throttle in these cars. Just using the curbs to help the thing rotate if you need to. Ford Koch really on the limit again. The limit of grip, I have to say.
I see what you did there. Yeah. It's because he's sponsored by Grip, a Toyota story. But nevertheless, moving on from Kyle's bad puns, we keep focusing here. Dust kicked up again on the exit of that corner over the crest of the hill. And this is what I love. Coming down into 16, the multiple lines that you can take that all kind of feed into one that comes down through 17 through that final corner.
So just 14 minutes to go, single file for most of the field here as drivers kind of plot and plan. We talked to a few drivers that, and ourselves, we've also related this at times to Sonoma Raceways, a little bit of dust kicked up. And it's a driver's racetrack, it's very rhythm-based. And so what that means is you spend a lot of your lap gearing up for one corner for your passing opportunity. You're not necessarily going to try to force it wherever. At Road America, you probably could pass in every single corner if you tried. But here, I'm interested in, the process of chipping away at the gap ahead of you and setting yourself up for that pass into 5.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's really about slow and steady progress. It's not necessarily about taking those big chunks out of it. But speaking of chunks, Jeremy Fletcher has taken a big chunk away from Ethan Goulart. This gap has expanded up to a 1.5 seconds, and now Fletcher's got himself a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, certainly. See him kick up some dirt. Yeah, I think this is sort of what you expect to see with some pushing and shoving from Fletcher to get by. Well, not pushing and shoving literally, but just pushing the limit to get on by. We'll have a look at a replay a moment ago because Goulart had a little bit of a slide, and there's where that gap came from. Whew.
Yeah, just ran that car a little bit heavy. We've seen that happen in some other series that have run here, thinking back to all 4 wheels in the air at different points I have seen through that corner. So Ethan Goulart joining very rarefied air in taking a little off-track excursion down through Museum Corner.
And that camera is a little low for it, but there is effectively a 2-car width wide rumble strip that is all fair game to use. And that's what he was using the edge of on our Race Vision powered by AWS. Wesley Workman has the fastest lap of the race, just 100th between Ethan Goulart and Jeremy Fletcher, though. They've been very tight. Same story between Max Schweid and Spike Kohlbecker, running 7th and 4th, respectively, and 4th and 5th on that list.
I'm a little surprised here about Kohlbecker's pace. He broke away from the likes of Will Robusto that we watch on our screen right here, but he hasn't been able to catch back up to Ethan Goulart. I would have thought we would have seen that gap come down a little bit more. It's 2.5 seconds right now. But meanwhile, Robusto down through Museum Corner. Maybe a little bit wide there, had to feather the throttle, but I think DeLong had to do the same thing, so no harm, no foul there for Robusto.
Watching Max Schweid back there just lurking in that 98, the Tech Sport Racing car. We talked about his sim experience, and I think that's so valuable for a track like Barber Motorsports Park that isn't on a ton of schedules. So it's a great opportunity to use the simulator to shorten your learning curve. Again, there are some differences between the sim and the real world as far as how you use data and where you're applying the brake and throttle and how the surface feels. But if you can just get an understanding of where the curbs start and end, where the corner stations are, pit lane entry and exit, what direction the corners go, all these things, you're just reducing the amount of learning that you have to do when you get to the racetrack, and that's helped Max Schweid out a lot this year.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I've heard as we take a look at AWS Race Vision there, and that's the top speed. And really getting the toe is helping that out a lot more. So if you're able to get that toe, that's why we're not seeing the likes of Weston Workman up there. But Schweid, being able to tuck up behind two cars, he's getting a double draft, and that's certainly helping him get some speed.
Yeah, and again, remember that these cars are spec in their construction, and so in theory, if you all put them in a straight line drag race, all side by side, they'd run exactly the same distance. But a little slipstream here, and also the effect of getting back on throttle a hair sooner, and getting to your apex a little bit sooner, getting back on throttle a little sooner, carrying a little extra speed at the exit of the corner. You're not quite reaching VMAX here, and what I mean by that is there isn't a straightaway long enough to run this car out of gear. So if you get a little bit more cornering speed, you can carry that down to the end of the next straightaway at a track like Barber. And also note that you have a couple chicanes to navigate en route to 116 miles an hour on the backstretch.
That you do indeed. But back to your point about Sims, Kyle, that's the biggest thing that I've talked to drivers about up to this point is the fact that, whoa, big wiggle there for Parker DeLong coming through the chicane leading into the carousel, just had to catch it. But to your point, it, as you said, it cuts down the learning experience and it just gives you a fundamental understanding of the circuit. You're never going to replace that seat of the pants feel that you get from driving a real car around here, but it gives you a leg up. Yeah,
you could probably go out on your first laps of the weekend in practice at 70% rather than 40%. And I think that makes a big difference when you only have, 30 minutes of practice time and a little bit of qualifying to boot. So down into turn one, Parker DeLong still chasing the two of Will Robusto for a top 5 position here. Under 10 minutes remaining. Just watching the front wheels, those front Continentals turning left and right. A little oversteer, the old classic turn right to go left trick a few times on the last lap.
Yeah, but look at this from Weston Workman. 5 seconds up at the front of this field over Jeremy Fletcher. This is a masterclass from your championship points leader.
Yeah, again, we saw this a little bit at Sebring when he finally broke through and won both races in that weekend. And the dominance, you see it on the circuit performance there for Race Vision powered by AWS. It's everywhere. I mean, he has just found so much speed and he's so consistent. And that consistency and comfort and confidence is breeding the speed that you're seeing in the Endava BSI Racing 13 car. And if you're looking at a championship run, Weston Workman has absolutely fit that mold this year. And his worst finish is 6th.
Well, and as we always say, the mark of a true champion is what they do on their worst day. And if Weston Workman's worst day is a 6th place, that is a season worthy of a championship.
And again, there's no one else to match him really in that stat. Again, I mentioned earlier, the only driver to have earned points in every single event. A couple others are close, but no one has quite done that just yet other than Workman in 2025. So would be, if he can carry this on to Indianapolis, again, joining a crowd of drivers who had very dominant seasons. And he's looking much more like that at the tail end of this one. Is again, fighting some new drivers, some newcomers into the crowd like Jeremy Fletcher. I mean, even having those wild cards tossed in, Workman is still showing his true performance. Showing his performance.
Want to give a shout out to some of our big movers. I think our biggest is Spike Kolbecker up 4. No, excuse me, it's Jensen Safronis up 5. That is our biggest movers. Also Patrick Brunson up 4, so credit to him. But yeah, Fletcher's done a great job here. I mean, really since he came in Road America, just kind of put a stamp of authority down and said, I need to be taken seriously.
Yeah, again, coming from another one-make series or a couple other one-make series where he's had a lot of success, and Copeland Motorsports, a name that's known across the racing atmosphere in North America in general. The expectation is top 5s from the get-go. Maybe not podium right out of the gate, but here he is in contention for a podium, which would be his first of his career in Toyota GR Cup. Checking back in on Lucas Weisenberg after that drive-through penalty, recovering to 17th. This will be a day to forget for the 46.
It'll be a day to forget for him, but I also want to give him credit. I mean, the fact that he had to serve a drive-through penalty and he's already worked his way back up to 17th and may be able to get Massimo Sinceri by the end of this run. He's only 8 tenths behind him. that shows me that 46 has got some speed.
He's got some speed. I think, Lucas will tell you himself after that, 17th versus 16th makes no difference because you don't get a different amount of points. You both get 0. So that's what he'll be looking at from a championship perspective. But, I think he knows he's got speed. Every time I've walked in on the trailer, and he's always analyzing data, looking at sector times and trying to figure out what he can do different. But you see, fastest sector 1, 4th quickest of anybody in the field. So, again, the speed is there. But this race did not start the way that Lucas Weisenberg needed to defend his 3rd in the championship.
No, he did not, and unfortunately that team's going to have a little bit of work to do, as you can see, and there we go. He's going to gain 1 position back for sure. That's Massimo Sinceri right in front of him in the number 51 that will be given a drive-through penalty for incident responsibility.
And that was for the contact on the opening lap with the 5 of Beltre Curtis. That was the investigation that just concluded from a while ago, but the 51 is been summoned to the pit lane. He will immediately serve that, and that'll give Lucas Weisenberg position number 16. And that front splitter on that car is also detaching.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up, the work that the team's going to have to do. Meanwhile, your leader here at this point with 5 minutes and 20 seconds left to go has a little bit of lap traffic to deal with up in front of him in the form of Rutledge Wood. And you saw as Beltre Curtis came into pit lane flashing those hazards kind of as an indication, hey, I'm coming down into the pits. I've got to imagine here Rutledge will do something similar to probably allow the leaders by. Although he does not have to, but he does. I saw a little bit of a flash of the lights there, and I don't think that was the brakes.
Yeah. Again, Rutledge Wood learning a lot under the tutelage of Ryan Eversley at Precision Racing LA, and this was probably, in my opinion, the hardest racetrack on the schedule to learn. Circuit of the Americas has a lot of corners and it's complex in its geometry, but it has some long straights and some flowing sections where you can just keep it pinned. This is a really technical racetrack and one that has been a challenge for Rutledge this weekend. I do think, though, that Indianapolis Motor Speedway, he's probably better prepped for. I think that point and shoot sort of almost street racing, flat, smooth street racing style thing will probably benefit Rutledge as he builds his experience.
Yeah, really only one area of elevation change, and that is turn 1 coming off of the banking. You do dip a little bit and rise back up, but other than that, it is pretty much flat as a board. And as suspected, Rutledge Wood getting out of the way and letting Reston Workman on by.
As we watch Workman make his way around, the question would be, well, why is Barber harder than the other tracks? And maybe it isn't, but my analysis of it would be, if you're looking at the grip and trying to understand and trust the car in these high-speed corners, it gets harder to anticipate the grip when the track is rising and falling away from you. In compressions, you gain a bunch of grip, and at the crest of a hill, you're going to lose a bunch of grip. So that's tricky for a driver to learn and take advantage of to find lap time. At a flat racetrack, everything's fairly predictable. There's not a lot of banking other than the final corner, which you're sort of coming up to speed anyway at Indianapolis. So the grip is fairly similar everywhere, and that is beneficial to a driver that doesn't have a lot of practice time in these cars.
Yeah, exactly. All right, checking back in. Kohlbecker not done here. We said he may have been out of it, but he is not. He's trying to close in on the back of Ethan Goulart for that 3rd place position.
So here's the situation for Spike Kohlbecker. Should he finish 3rd in this race, he would earn 15 points. The gap between himself and Lucas Weisenberg is currently 14 points. This would vault him to 3rd in the title if he can pass Ethan Goulart before this race is over.
He's going to want to do that, I think. Just a shot in the dark.
Robusto's off in the background.
Yep, that could open up the door a little bit here for Parker DeLong. DeLong's going to think about it. DeLong's going to go for it down to the inside. Robusto tries to roll the speed. They'll be side by side through 1. Racing room given into 2, and DeLong's got to give up the ghost.
He saw him turn in, and the car just shot out sideways. There's so much dust and marbles over there, and as soon as he turned in, the rear end wanted to be the front end for a second. Gathered it up, but it's hard to make a pass offline, especially through turn 2, where all that clag is built up just off the inside apex.
Kohlbecker not able to get a run. DeLong thought about it, then poked back into line. He's still got to worry about Max Schweid behind him. Schweid is doing a really heads-up job here of just sticking in line and not letting anything happen.
Yeah, so a couple battles sort of reformulating here before the end of this race as we get down to just 2 minutes left. The laps clicking away and the battles heating up in a couple places within the top 10. Kohlbecker's got Ethan Goulart in the crosshairs. And now Max Schweid chasing the 47. Little lockup on the right front tire of Parker DeLong's car, and we talked about this on the PA earlier, DJ. These cars do have ABS, but when you leap them over the curbs and land, it sort of has a momentary moment of trying to figure out what the wheel speed should be doing and locking up that right front Continental.
All right, a little bit of a wide run there for Parker DeLong. Max Schweid saw it. Going to try to put pressure onto the back of Parker, but not go for the overtake down into the left-right as they crest over the hill. Schweid maybe looking for that sneak attack that we've seen thrown in there before. About a minute and a half left to go. I can tell you that the white flag is in the air. Final lap for these drivers.
Yeah, 2.3 miles left to go, and we're not done sorting out the order just yet, as the pressure is on for these drivers to earn their final points of the day. Here's Kohlbecker on Coulthard. He might know the situation that the 46 car is down the order, currently scoring no points, but he's leaving everything out there on the racetrack. Big slide laterally across the road as he tries to hunt down the Tech Sport 72.
But this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the race, which is you can talk about championship, you can talk about long term, but you put that visor down and it is go, go, go.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you just pass all the cars you can pass, the rest takes care of itself, right? So That's the simple way to look at it.
All right, Goulart still trying to hold off Kohlbecker here. Kohlbecker's got a little bit of a good run. Rutledge Wood there on driver's right, doing the gentlemanly thing and getting out of the way of this battle for third place.
That was really helpful for the 72 of Goulart. Down into turn 8, Museum Corner for the final time. The leader, Weston Workman's a long ways away. Third place will be a battle all the way back to the checkers, and Robusto trying to cling to fifth just behind Rutledge Wood. Could that 18 car be a factor in the battle for P5, DJ, as they rumble over the curbs heading down towards turn 11?
Certainly could be. They're going to try to sort themselves out here as much as possible as they go down. Here is the battle with Will Robusto. This back for fifth place. DeLong getting very, very sideways. He's not going to be able to hold on to anything, but that is of absolutely no concern to your leader, Weston Workman, who comes across the start-finish line to take victory and further solidify himself as the championship favorite with 3 rounds to go.
Job well done there, and Ethan Goulart is going to hang on to third place behind Jeremy Fletcher, who picks up his first podium in Toyota GR Cup North America. So Workman, Fletcher, Goulart, Kohlbecker, Robusto, your top 5, and Jackson Bell, Jensen Sofronis, 8th and 9th. Jensen Sofronis, 14-year-old, comes across the stripe, earns only his 3rd race worth of points this year. So job well done here as the Ford Koch, Isabella Robusto, and Jackson Tovo battle comes to finish this race as well.
Yeah, it looks like Ethan Tovo is going to finish in front of that, followed by Koch, followed by Robusto, followed by Jackson Tovo. Close battles all the way up and down through this field. And there is Lucas Weisenberg, there is Beltre Curtis. So Weisenberg was able to move his way a few more positions up. He's going to get 16th by the end of the day.
Yeah, so for Weston Workman, what an amazing race for him. That was his 4th win of the year. Lucas Weisenberg, though, disappointing, 0 points. Now, with Spike Kohlbecker finishing 4th, he will not earn the 15 points he needs to overtake Lucas Weisenberg in the 3rd place championship, but that will be done potentially tomorrow if things were to repeat again. But 4th win of the season for Weston Workman, 2 at Sebring, 1 in race 2 at VIR. Road America had a 3rd place in the first of the 2 races for the weekend, but back on top here in Alabama.
Back on top in Alabama, flash of the headlights there all the way around to show a little bit of sportsmanship and picking up plenty of that clag on the tires for Weston Workman. Flashing the headlights himself. He knows this was a job well done.
So Weston Workman winning his 4th race of the year, and here's a look at the race results showing Workman on the top step, right ahead of Jeremy Fletcher, who earns his first ever podium in this series. Ethan Goulart for Tech Sport Racing, the number 72, grabs a 3rd over Spike Kohlbecker and Robusto in the top 5, DJ.
Yeah, down in 6th place it was Parker DeLong, Max Schweid. That battle going on all race long. Jackson Bell and Jensen Sofronis and Ethan Tovo round out your top 10. A good result there for Ethan in 10th. Koch, Robusto, Tovo, Foreman down into 14th. We talked about Weisenberg down in 16th. A day to forget for him, it has to be said. Looking down through the rest of the order there, Peyton Fain was able to recover into 19th place. Massimo Sinceri rounding out your top 20.
Yeah, so I think the storylines of this race, looking back on the day, DJ, Jeremy Fletcher with his first podium in this series, and then the lack of a podium or lack of points at all for Lucas Weisenberg with that drive-through penalty for avoidable contact, and that has the potential to flip-flop the 3rd place position in the championship battle heading into Indianapolis. We'll have to see how tomorrow's race, Sunday's race, round 12 of the championship shakes out.
Yeah, that's going to be, I think, really decisive here, particularly for that battle in 3rd place. It's looking more and more like Weston Workman maybe just has a pinky finger on the trophy here at this point. I'm not going to say he's got a hand on it yet, but Weston Workman doing some donuts.
Oh, man.
Always love to see that from a young driver. think he's excited. Just a shot in the dark.
I would say so. You know, it was interesting when I was looking at the results to confirm that this was his 4th win. I thought he had won more than that, but he's just been so consistently in the podiums this year. You know, you fail to realize how hard it really is to win races in this championship with how competitive it is. 4 different teams represented inside the top 5. BSI Racing, Copeland Motorsports, Tech Sport, and RVA Graphics Motorsports by Speed Syndicate. It takes a lot. It takes a crew with a lot of heart and soul to put together race cars every weekend, to have runs like that, and to win by 2.7 seconds at a place like Barber is dominant.
Yeah, it very much is. There you can see some of our podium finishers making their way down on in, and the man of the moment, Weston Workman, pulling down into the lane right now. Our amazing team relations and operations team, making sure everybody is getting things together. They are the masters of getting all of that pulled together, and here comes Workman out of the car right now.
Watch that window now.
Coming up on the hood of the car. Oh, he is pumped up. You can see it. He is very, very excited. Maybe a little bit exhausted with the heat, too.
Yeah, they don't come easy, do they? I mean, I mentioned how competitive this championship is. The last couple of years, they've been dominant forces at the top of the pylon. Every single race this year, Weston Workman has been 6th or better. But wins are still hard to come by. Number 4 of the year. And looking really, really solid. And, you know, we talked about the championship points, and he came in with a 41-point lead here, DJ. He's only going to extend that with Jackson Bell's 8th place in this. So here's a look at things and how they stand. And note that for Spike Kohlbecker and Ethan Goulart, just 112 points for Spike, 114 for Ethan. So Lucas Weisenberg tied now for 3rd place with Goulart. So this is going to get really spicy tomorrow to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, that battle for 3rd is going to get very spicy indeed. And we are about ready to be able to get down and talk with our winner, who's down with Amanda Busick.
Weston Workman with his 4th win of the season, and another one in dominating fashion. But what everyone is talking about is how close you are to this championship. Can you feel it?
I can definitely feel it. And I knew coming into this weekend that we had a chance at the championship. I just needed to do my part. But enough credit to me. We got to give credit to these guys behind me right here. Point the camera to them. BSI Racing, they gave me a great car. I wasn't even driving that thing out there. I was probably 75–80% the whole race. I never even had to push it. So thank you to BSI Racing, Toyota, and Barber Racing. My family is all behind me. My dad right here. It's just an awesome weekend to do it in front of all these amazing people.
You were a little late to getting here to me at the podium. Why's that?
I did some donuts. That's my first time doing some victory donuts. I'm glad I was able to do that. Hopefully we can do some more tomorrow.
Well done, Weston.
Thank you.
As we take a look back of the highlights, it was Weston Workman from the outset, a decisive move down into the inside. Little bit of scruffiness in the back of the field, multiple incidents, kind of setting the flavor of this race. There we see the 4 wide, doesn't go well down through the Alabama roller coaster, and that was Max Stallone getting pushed out wide. But that was of no concern to Weston Workman, who just dominated up front. Peyton Fain, a little bit later on in the race, had a spin. She was able to recover and keep going. This battle, though, between Jeremy Fletcher and Ethan Goulart kept going all race long, as did battles through the back of the field. Fort Koch getting a little bit sideways there. There, Tovo trying to work his way ahead, and Fort Koch getting into one another once again. A couple of warnings being issued over the course of the race, but everybody keeping it relatively together. There was the last moment that Ethan Goulart really had to be able to close in on the back of Jeremy Fletcher. It was a good race for the likes of Spike Kohlbecker, who worked his way through, but it was a race for no one better than for Weston Workman. An absolutely fantastic run for the driver who has one finger on the trophy. From all of us here, it has been a great time to bring you the racing action. We'll see you tomorrow for GR Cup North America.